I think fundamentally with this job, I'm spotting opportunities to create more positive futures. Very often we're looking at things and we can actually say, this is where I predict something is quite clearly sometimes going to go. But actually the key thing for our clients is that obviously the future is not inevitable. The future is actually something that you can shape and you can reimagine. And for me, that's a hugely exciting prospect. So my research methodology is very much about working with people that obviously aren't people that are necessarily trends experts, that are people that are in their fields, that can actually stress test my own ideas, that can give me insights into fields that they're working in, which might apply to the things that I'm working on. There's a lot of myth busting that I work on with psychologists because we have to be so careful for all of us. There are many, many prevailing narratives within our industry, but also the wider industry about how certain cohorts, for instance, are going to behave that really don't stand up to scrutiny, whether you're looking at the sort of values, actions gap, as you might call it, with Gen Z, for instance. And it's really dangerous not to really interrogate those things really heavily with the people that are working in their fields. Most trends, they don't just fly out of nowhere. They will be things that will be rolling for a while. They will sometimes dial up, they will sometimes dial down. They'll become more important because of what's happening in the outside world. So I think it's about understanding where these various trends and ideas will intersect with one another as well. So for instance, I've been talking about the idea of the pleasure revolution for quite a long time. That idea of sort of, seeking out joy. We've seen it manifesting in loads of ways, whether it's like the desire for more micro moments. It used to just be about these big, huge, it's Christmas and it's Easter and it's these things. Now we're seeing this idea of, micro parties and injecting as many small moments of joy into your life as you can. This sort of feel-good factor. Looking at it when you come to actually like wellness in the store space, we see that as a trend that's intersecting with the renaissance of interest in psychedelics, something born out of the fact that during the pandemic, for many people, it's not that they distrust traditional medication, but they're now also open to alternatives, for instance. So we're seeing a whole load now of really fascinating store concepts in this space that are kind of a hybrid between medicine, retail, psychedelics, sort of traditional wellness, fitness, self-care. There's a whole load of these things that are starting to kind of hybridize. Thinking about the metaverse and virtual worlds and this idea of the embodied internet, the internet that we kind of live in as opposed to just look on into. This is really the future of, particularly for retail, this is really the future of e-commerce. I think, we're going to look back in not very long at all and think how bonkers it is that we would sit in front just of a kind of long scrolling page of images which will look the same when you're trying to search through sort of 50,000 items. This is very much about thinking about spaces that we can really service, that can be much more discovery oriented, where as a brand you can really understand what people are doing, you can connect with them in a way that you've never really been able to connect with them online. And that's just thinking almost about the more practical issues of how to translate e-commerce from where it is now to bringing that online. Aside from that, there's also a lot to be considered in terms of if we think about some of the really big issues that we're facing at the moment, like an epidemic of loneliness, virtual spaces will be really significant in helping us address that. Civic-centered commerce is a huge theme that we're working on continuously, actually, because civic-centered commerce is essentially about brands rethinking who the stakeholders of that business really is. Previously that used to be your shareholders, and it's sort of now it's thinking about everyone you touch, whether it's your suppliers, particularly your community, your local community, the people you're selling things to. What is the knock-on effect and the influence that you have on their lives? So I think it's fundamentally about that understanding of the wider ramifications of what you do as a business. This is about brands working out what it is they can give the people that they work with, that they collaborate with, that buy their stuff, that connect with them, to enable them to really thrive in real life. It's very real, it's very tangible, it's really about changing people's lives for the better. And that keeps me kind of grafting as hard as I can to find the experts and the people that I need to make sure that every decision that I make and I write about and report on is as informed as possible.